Okay, so welcome everybody to a new episode on the solar journey. And today we have a new guest. It's Luca Pedretti. He's the CEO and co-founder of PXA Park. Welcome, Luca. Hi.
Hi there. Pleasure to be with you. Thanks.
Yeah. So Luca is, as I just mentioned, the co-founder of PXA Park, and it's a company based in Switzerland. And it's specialized in power purchase agreements for solar energy.
Yep.
And so before, Luca held various management positions at Axpo Trading. Axpo is an energy provider, a utility in Switzerland, and is actually one of the largest companies in Switzerland, which I just found out on Wikipedia.
I didn't know.
Yeah. They make billions of rev.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and Luca closed his first power purchase agreement in 2008, so quite a long time ago. And that was for a 100 megawatt wind park in Poland. Well, that's pretty interesting. I'm sure we will talk about that. Early stages of PPAs in renewables. And since ever then, he has been in the renewable energy trading business. So he's all about energy trading and renewables. And he also says he's actually stuck in this sector for good because his wife is not so much interested in renewables, so he has to compensate for this.
That's
so
right.
you mentioned to me that in an earlier conversation we had in preparation for this call. Maybe you want to elaborate on this?
Yeah, I could talk renewables 24/7, and as she is not so much into renewables, I had to overcompensate job-wise.
All right.
So I'm very happy just to dedicate myself to renewables.
Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah. So you've got a degree from the University of St. Gallen in politics and economics, I think.
Yeah.
And then you started a, let's say, career in energy trading. Was it renewables right from the start, or was it just conventional?
Yeah, it was all incidental. I mean, I wanted to become a diplomat.
Okay.
And I was working then in development aid in Indonesia and came back and somehow ended up with an energy utility.
Yeah.
And the first thing I was allowed to do was a PPA. I didn't have any idea what that is.
Yeah.
But what I really realized at that time in Poland, when we did such a power purchase agreement, is that it enabled the realization of a huge wind park at that point in time.
Yes.
And I was always interested in green stuff and renewables, and this really got me. I said, wow, this PPA means more renewables. And since then, I haven't stopped doing PPAs.
Yeah. So when did you discover your urge to go into renewables? Did they start during your degree or after your degree or even during school time?
It's a good question. I haven't thought about it. I always wanted to make a change, and somehow green was associated with something positive.
Yeah.
I didn't much reflect on it. I just thought, let's do more of this positive thing.
Yeah.
But I think there's some connotations. I mean, renewables are connotated with decentralization.
Mm-hmm.
It's connotated nowadays also with a smart way of doing things. So these are also interesting aspects. And I'm generally fascinated by things which keep on running for a long time. Yeah? What makes you successful in the long run? I think that's the core topic of sustainability. And renewal, of course, means it can auto-generate, and that's somehow probably explaining my passion for that.
Yeah. Okay. So back then the deal in fantastic. Yeah. So back then the deal in Poland that was already with Axpo. Axpo.
Yeah, there was a company then at that time was called EGL. It was one of the leading pan-European energy trader. That was very important at that point before the liberalization, in the beginning of the market liberalization. There was a lot of trading of fossil power, across borders.
Yeah.
And that was what EGL was doing. And then in Poland, there was the case that they started with a first subsidy regime. to promote renewables, which was a 99% coal country. And they were receiving green certificates. So if you were to build a renewable plant, you would get green certificates for 10, 15 years. But there was also electricity next to it, and you had to do something with it. So those investors were trying to sell the electricity for a very long period in exchange for a fixed cash flow. And with this fixed cash flow, they would run to the bank and say, hey, I have a very good off-taker. It's a Swiss company. It's owned by the state. They will never default. They will always pay. Now, here's the money I will get. Please give me debt. Yeah? So I don't need so much equity, and I can leverage my investment. And that's basically the foundation of project finance and PPA. Yeah? Secure renewable cash flows for 10 years. Banks are happy. Give debt so you can invest more in renewables, and that's what the renewable world has been doing ever since now.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, this must have been one of the first power purchase agreements, in short PPA, in Europe, or how would you put that in context?
Yeah, it started, I mean, Sweden was one of the leading markets. They at that time, when basically renewables, when you look on the history of renewables, in the beginning they said that doesn't work at all. Physically it can't work. And then at a certain point it was just expensive, so you had all this support system, and in Germany was the very famous EEG. But in other markets they tried other subsidy regimes, and in Sweden, in Poland and other markets they tried certificates regimes.
Certificates for CO2 emissions?
No, it was particular certificates just for wind or just for solar. So, and there was another way of trying to support, and the side effect was that when you get certificates, you still get power. You need to do something. And those certificates market allowed the creation of a PPA market, because the first renewable investors had to do something with their power. They needed to sell it into the market. And that was actually the birth of renewable energy sales, or power purchase agreement. And it was not a topic in Germany, because in Germany, just the government would pay you for electricity. You didn't have to do anything with it.
Yeah, there was no trading required. So the certificate gave them the right to emit CO2 from standard coal power plants, or what kind of certificates were these?
It was more a system that if you're a utility and you supply electricity to households, you need to show the government that you have 10% of your electricity is green. And then you would go to green producers and you would exchange a certificate. And when this was done, everyone was happy. And those certificates, of course, they had an artificially high price, which allowed then the investment on the renewable side.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So how many PPAs in volume? I don't know. What would you say, in megawatts or in euros? Have you done?
We're typically talking gigawatts. I think I've been doing more than 6 gigawatts of PPA. For new capacity over the last 10 years. So right now we have 600 gigawatts installed for solar. I don't know how much in wind. Oh wow! I think every year now more than 40 gigawatts gets built. I don't even know what the overall figures are, but it has become a huge market.
Solar, it's more than 100 each year. And wind, I'm not sure.
Most is still under Feedin. When you look back a few years, but this is changing now dramatically. I mean, technology has gotten so cheap. Secondly, there is not much money left and willingness on the government side to continue subsidizing when costs go down. And this combination has been the driving factor behind the PPA boom across Europe.
Okay. So Feedin Tariff, that's was and still is in a way partially the key driver in Germany and many other countries. So could you just briefly explain how a Feedin Tariff works, and then we compare that with the
Feedin Tariff is a governmental sales agreement. It's a PPA with the government.
Okay.
And the EGL means that in Germany that the government pays you 20 years a price for whatever you produce, so you don't need to think about it.
Yeah, whenever you produce for the whole time, right? So since
whenever
we have the
you produce, you don't
so I
need
think
to
that's
worry.
yeah.
You get paid by the government.
Yeah, and a previous guest talked about the net metering, which he found to be very successful in Brazil, for example.
Yeah,
that's where you basically consume or produce, and basically the electricity, I don't know what it's called, counter meter just moves forwards or backwards depending on if you produce
relevant for like home kits, like the very small installations.
Yeah.
Now PPAs are typically referred to very big investments. I mean, typically with PPA we're in the business to business world where hundreds of millions are invested. When we look at the most recent PPAs done, for example, in Spain, now we're talking hundreds of megawatts of solar installations, all the energy then being contracted under one PPA.
Yeah.
Or in Germany or in Norway, Sweden, we talk of huge wind parks. I mean, they are 500 megawatts, and they sell all their energy into one big PPA.
Yeah.
So these are, it's like there's different segments of the renewable market.
Yeah. We'll come back to PPAs right away. I'd love to understand more about it. And so you were with Axpo, but then you did start your own thing, right? So you started Pexapark.
Yeah.
Why did you do that?
Oh, that's a good question. Why did I do that? I always wanted to do
remember.
it. Yeah, I can't remember. No, I think we were seeing that the need to do PPAs became a huge thing. Yeah. So to the combination of higher power prices, the lack of new subsidies, and lower technology costs, suddenly it became feasible across Europe.
Yeah.
And that means that all the investors that so far were brilliant engineers, I mean, they need to focus on acquiring the land, getting the permits, building choosing the right technology, building it, and then optimizing the hell out of it. Yeah. So highest possible availability.
Yeah.
But they didn't need to think about selling the output, what is actually being produced. They didn't need to worry. And suddenly this became extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of Pexapark was, you know what? We help you get this PPA done.
Yeah.
From A to Z. So how to find a PPA, how to price and structure it. Because suddenly now there's a huge difference between what you actually contract and what you get. So it's all engineers there, and suddenly you have these commercial aspects.
Yeah.
And I mean, suddenly you become an entrepreneur in a very much commercial sense. So prices change every day.
Yeah.
You need to have competences, a strategy, how to get rid of this electricity. So your revenue is uncertain. Before it was certain. So it's a huge paradigmatic shift. It's a huge change. I mean, first now you need to get your sales in order that you can realize your project. And this is just upside down. Yeah. In the past it was get the project done sequentially, you do one after the other, and now suddenly you need to start with, first I need to sell my energy before I actually can do my project.
Yeah. Okay. So how big is Pexapark now? When did you found it, and how many people, how much revenue?
3 years ago.
Yeah, 3 years ago. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, almost 3 years. We're now 30 people.
Yep.
We have probably advised and worked on more than 5 gigawatts of PPAs.
Wonderful.
And it has become now a software business. Well, it's like you need to know how much you sell, how your risks are changing, your production is changing every day, prices are changing every day. So it has become a moving target, and you need to keep track of your energy sales and energy risks.
Yeah.
And for that, you need actually a cockpit, a monitor where you can look into your energy sales.
Yeah. And you didn't found Pexapark yourself. You how did you find your co-founders? Who are they, and why did you choose them?
Yeah, I mean, we started with my
former colleagues,
from
ex-boss,
ex-boss. Worked with him 10 years together, and then we had some of the same ideas, and we wrote down a business plan. It was almost very how you say, it's like, well, we walked into an investor and he liked it on the spot, and that made the thing much easier if you have someone believing in your idea, investing also into you, that you can try to realize your dream.
Yeah.
And since then, we've just been busy building, working, doing.
Okay.
I think the mission really is to enable renewable investors to succeed in the energy transition.
Yeah.
To somehow go from to be able to deal with uncertainty in energy sales.
Yeah.
Before you had certainty, now you have not, and this will change the entire market. I mean, it will be very easy looking back in 5-10 years to say, it was very clear.
Yeah.
It will change the way renewables are financed. It will change the way markets work.
Yeah.
And it will lay open new conflict lines.
Yeah.
Between the players in the market.
Yeah. Excellent. 3 years, that's you're almost still in a startup, but you seem to be doing already pretty well. What was the hardest thing?
We're still burning money.
You're still burning money.
We're still burning money.
You're saying that on air. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying this on air. It's according to plan.
Okay.
I think what we need to understand is what we're trying to do is we're in business to business. So
yeah.
People need to trust you. They basically, when they invest in us and buy our software, they want to be sure that we're still here. So that's why it's important that you have a diversified, strong shareholder base. So we have actually industrial companies investing in us. So this secures that we will stay and being able to deliver our services. And then we're selling big items. I mean, our software, well, you need a big credit card to buy it, but typically an industrial, our clients, it takes from the first time we see them until everything is done and settled, it can take a year.
Oh, wow.
And then software development is very expensive.
Yeah.
So, but then you see at the core it works and it generates good money. So we're just crazy on investing that money because we want to have an impact. And with that, if you invest in growth, it's just very expensive. But that's actually the good way of, I believe, the market working with startups where you get risk capital to build something and you validate constantly. And if it works well, you get additional money. You have to be up for that. That's not for everyone. You can also do the incremental way. But I think we see a huge chance to really make an impact in this market.
What was the biggest challenge now from going to the court and registering your company until now? What was the biggest challenge for you to say? When you think of other possible founders maybe listening, what would you say? What was the toughest part? What did it require to get beyond that?
I would say we were extremely lucky that we had a funding in place. So it was not all of my pockets. I mean, I reduced my salary, I put in equity.
Yeah.
But somehow we knew we have 12 months to go.
Yeah.
So that helped a lot. What is extremely tough is creating something of value. I mean, the ultimate stick is clients paying you for your services.
Yeah.
And that's brutal reality. But this is, I mean, just also the learning is huge. I mean, what you can learn, and it's very fulfilling if someone pays for your services, and that it starts to work. So that's but actually, I don't have much time to think about it. Also, to be very clear, I've been since then working.
Maybe we can talk again in 5 years or so when you can have breathing space to look back, right?
Yes. No, I think what I'm most proud of is the team. We have created a fantastic culture. I mean, from the people we hire, and that basically and the validation in the market that we see it works.
Yeah.
So that's enough already for me.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, culture is super important. I would agree. Yeah, and the people, sure. So you mentioned software. Yeah, your key product service is a software. Yeah, maybe you can elaborate on that. So, and what's your business model? So you're in between the buyer of electricity and the generator of electricity. What are you? How do you create value for both of them?
Yeah, a good question. The market is not working very efficiently between the seller and the buyer. It's very intransparent. Mm-hmm. And the idea we first had is to create transparency in the market. So we have one solution is that we help just getting the PPA done. So it's a software that helps you pricing the PPA and matching sellers and buyers. Yeah. So everything related from A to Z to get your energy sold. Yeah. So as soon as you have sold it, you need to do need to have a tab on it, yeah, because it constantly changes. And so you need to have a financial monitor, a risk monitor. And now, how do you pay us? Basically, we charge a subscription fee. So people pay us on a yearly basis to keep accessing the software, like you do with Office 365. Yeah.
All right. So your product is a software as a service subscription model, and why would I? So that this is for companies who do PPAs all the time, like. Right. Correct. Because if you do it just once, then you don't need a subscription, right?
Yeah, that's correct. If you were only to it, you would need the subscription only 1 year when you do the PPA. Yeah. The PPA, the issue is that this is dependent on market prices, and prices change every day. And typically from A to Z, it can take years to realize a project. So you need to have an infrastructure in place to be able to close PPAs. And we're providing this infrastructure. And this infrastructure is very sophisticated and was so far only accessible to very big utilities. They have this infrastructure in place and they can do it. And our ambition is to make this infrastructure available to investors, funds, but they cannot spend millions, so they will rather subscribe to this as a service.
Yeah. Right now, just struggling briefly with my electricity. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
That looks a lot better now. Good. All right. Hey, excellent. So, what kind of infrastructure do you need to make such a good to have all PPA. The know-how the data to do a PPA?
Yeah. First of all, you need to know what is the price.
Yeah, but then this is like one data point. Or why is it? Because it keeps changing the pricing, or why is it?
Yeah, the price is changes every day.
Yeah.
The price changes according to where your project is.
Yeah.
What type of technology you have.
Yeah.
It depends on the. Sorry, it depends on the type of PPA you want. Is it 5 year, 10 years? Is it a full service or on the little services? So you suddenly have thousands of data points. Uh-huh. And this is the first thing. You need to have transparency of what is the fair price for my PPA. Mm-hmm. And then when you know what you want to do, you need to find a buyer.
Yeah.
And the software connects you with the buyers.
So it's actually also a marketplace where
it's a slow-moving marketplace. I mean, you need to understand
five participants on the buyer side, or 10.
Yeah, we talk about hundreds of participants in Europe. Yeah. But I mean, when you look at the entire market, 200 transactions are being done a year.
Yeah.
So it's not like, it's not a high-frequency product.
Yeah.
And a typical process goes 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
So it's slow motion matching and trading. It's not something which it's very dynamic and someone clicks. It is really a very structured process, like when someone buys a big company. Mm-hmm. It's related. I mean, it's still, I mean, a 500 megawatt solar park leads to 300 million euro investment. Yeah. So, and project finance involved. So there's a lot of stakeholders involved, a lot of due diligence. So it's a very structured, very high stake process. Yeah. So there is a lot of trust involved as well. Do people trust the prices we do? And yes, they do. And can we help speeding up the process? Yes, we can. So I think it's a lot of about transparency, trust, and helping to manage the process better.
Yeah. Okay. So with the fair price, when we start with that, then you basically look at historical data. So let's look at your 100 megawatt Poland plant. Then you just look what's the electricity pricing in Poland, right? I would assume. How does it fluctuate over? Yeah.
The main input factors are what is currently traded on the market. So whatever is traded at the exchange is the key benchmark for PPA pricing.
Yeah. But you also need to look into the future, right? So basically you need to forecast somehow the development of the electricity pricing.
That's a very good question. In the end, the key question you should ask as an investor now is, with what likelihood do I want to secure my revenues? Uh-huh. Because you could say, I want a fixed price now for 100%.
Okay.
But then you have the full security.
But no upside.
But there's no. Now, this is then a very deliberate decision-making process on the investor, depending on his profile. It's like a personal investment decision. Like the questions to you is, what is the minimal cost you need to have covered?
Yeah.
And will you freak out if you go 20% below your expectation? Or are you very cool and you say, you know what, I have funds, I can stay, and I have a view that prices will go up. So this is so fundamentally different than investing in a feed-in tariff, which guarantees you the payback and everything for 20 years. So this situation where you need to take so many decisions, shall I sell 100%, 50%? Is this a good price? What happens if prices are higher or lower? What we are actually doing here is we're managing uncertainty. And we're in a probabilistic world. And this is something completely new to the investment world. I mean, to the renewable investment world. In the other world, this is completely common.
Normal. Yeah.
But it's just, it's different questions in the investment process.
Yeah. So do you help your customers to forecast the development of the future pricing? Or do you say, hey guys, that's all up to you?
That's up to you. That you have very specialized companies, Puri, Baringa, and all the likes, who do fundamental models. They ask themselves, if technology costs go down, if more renewables are built, if gas prices go up, what will happen to the German power price in 2025?
Yeah.
But that's like taking a crystal ball. Yeah. The forecast will be wrong.
Yeah.
Our take is, what can I secure today?
Yeah.
And with what likelihood can the non-secured part change? Yeah. And you make a stress test and say, look, in this and this circumstances, you will be fine. So it's more a probabilistic view of how your revenue looks like and what can you do today to secure your revenue.
Yeah. But your customers, do they have a chance to include a speculation onto the future? Because I guess that would help them to.
Most do, yeah. Most want to. They basically, it depends on the investor. If the original money is pension funds, they ideally don't want to have any risks.
Okay.
But there are others who say, look, I want to have my operational costs secured.
Yeah.
After 10 years, I have my debt paid off, and then I'm in fantasy land.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned, so it's basically managing risks bringing in transparency on the various risks. What are the risks? I mean, for renewables, of course, it's the fluctuating power generation, and the other one is, will the prices go up or down for my product? What other risks are there?
Yeah. I mean, from a renewable point of view, the first risk is volume risk.
Yeah.
So there is, you don't know how much energy resources there actually will be. So how much wind will there be over 10 years? The second is the so-called profile costs or risks. That's related to the location of your asset.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a lot of wind in the same area, there is a cannibalization effect on the value of your production.
Yeah.
Then there is a balancing risk. That means the way the power market works, you need to tell the grid one day in advance how much energy you will produce. Because the grid needs to remain stable. They need to know exactly how much electricity will there be.
Okay.
And as we all know, your forecast will be wrong. And there will be a charge, a balancing fee, a cost to that. So whatever you see as a gross electricity price, you need to make deductions to receive your net capture rate. And this is the first challenge for new investors. They need to understand all those different types of risks. And last but not least, you sell to a company, a private company, so you also have credit risks. What if the company doesn't pay? What if the company goes bust? There's an additional risk to contracting electricity.
Yeah, excellent. So so you're mostly dealing with wind and I guess also PV, photovoltaics, solar.
Yeah.
These are the key.
It depends very much on the geography. I think in Scandinavia, everyone it's going on wind, and in Italy and in Spain it's more on solar.
Yeah.
This has purely to do with the resource economics.
Yeah. What about other renewables? Do they play any role at all? Like whatever, biogas, geothermal, tidal, whatever there you can think of?
Nothing. I mean, hydro, nothing is built anymore.
Yeah. Why not? Do you know?
Yeah, probably because everything has been built, which can be built.
Yeah. There's no more.
Yeah. There's
no more mountains
to.
Yeah,
exactly. And biogas is they're more in gas. This is not so much an electricity game.
Yeah.
So it's really wind and it's really solar, but it is actually really solar.
Yeah. Well, why is that?
Well, because it's where there is sun. It's just the most competitive technology.
Yeah. How competitive is it to? Sorry. Yeah.
Offshore is, it's wind, but it's a different branch of the wind technology.
Mm-hmm.
So that's still expensive, but it's coming in very big and very, very strongly.
Okay. Have you done any projects on offshore wind?
Yeah, we have done offshore PPAs in Germany.
Yeah.
We have accompanied and advised them and helped to close.
Yeah.
But that's, there's a clear competition between technologies. Germany will be huge in solar PPAs, new build solar, subsidy free. Prices are right now a bit too low, but just 3 months ago.
Too low?
Yeah, the forward market, the overall market price for power has been decreasing in Germany. Yeah. And it has been decreasing to a level where investors deem it too low for new investments.
Okay.
And that's exactly the key thing with this new PPA market. There are swine cycles. Yeah? When prices are high, everyone is contracting, doing 10-year PPAs and building new assets. Then prices may go down again and no one is building. So you have these cycles of build and non-build.
Yeah.
And we have seen this very clearly in Sweden, which is under such a system for more than 10 years. But that works. It is all, we have to every other fossil investment doesn't work like this. For new nuclear power plants in the UK, they need to get a government subsidy, which, I mean, for these prices, there would be so many solar built.
Yeah, what do they get? They get like 20 cents, even compensated for inflation. I think like it's an insane deal
huge.
they've got.
It's huge. I mean,
Yeah.
I think, or also when you just look at the last PPAs in Germany for solar, they were about 40 euro, all inclusive.
Per megawatt hour, yeah.
Yeah, so for 10 years, so with those prices, or in Spain it was 35 to 37, but they have much more sun, so they can afford a lower price. So with those price levels, which were purely given by the market, you had investments on gigawatt scale, completely subsidy free.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is real and it's working and it's scalable. And the thing is, you can do it in small units. Yeah, you can do 100 megawatts, 500 megawatts.
Yeah, it's modular. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if prices fall, which they did now, also accelerated due to the COVID crisis. If prices are too low, nothing will be built.
Yeah.
So that's like that's a free market. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's look on the whole planet.
Yeah.
Do you work internationally, and what is the situation outside Germany, outside Europe, let's say South America, Asia, North America?
Well, in the US, it's pretty much similar. I think what I'm describing here works in a world where you have traded markets, where you have forward markets, where you have power exchanges.
Yeah.
If this doesn't exist, a PPA market cannot exist.
Okay. So so that's the regulatory framework you need. You need a liberal energy market, electricity market.
There needs to be somehow an exchange where power can be traded.
Yeah.
That you can do this. Of course, somehow bilaterally you could maybe arrange, but if you trade, basically you want to know, well, it's much easier to trade if there is a trusted benchmark.
Yeah, you need an alternative, right? Otherwise you can't, there's no negotiation. Right?
If there is a third party, everyone, if we talk about electricity prices in Germany, everyone knows this exchange in Leipzig, what is quoted there, this is accepted as the fair price.
Yeah.
And if you don't have this, it's very difficult to build a real market.
Yeah. Yeah. What about so you want to scale your business? So do you want to go South America, Africa? I don't know. There's so many places where
we definitely
we will see the energy transition, right?
Yeah. We definitely have the ambition to go to the US, as it is similar to what we do here. I would be already happy. I mean, I look forward 3 months, so that's my
it's your horizon, your scope.
My horizon. But definitely I think what I'm most interested is the longer term implications. So how will financing change? And there will be, I mean, we come from markets with very low renewable penetration, maybe 5% or nothing. And now we're reaching 30, 40, 50% renewable penetration.
Yeah.
And at some point, it's not, both systems cannot coexist. That's what I see. So right now, the whole curtailment issue is mitigated. So in Germany, if you're under EGL subsidy and you're curtailed, you're compensated by the government. So it's a double cost to the society. So you have a subsidy and there is too much renewables, they're curtailed and you're compensated. Under the new auctions, that's not the case.
What do you mean under a new option? With a PPA? Oh, yeah. Yeah,
with a PPA or with a new German subsidy, it means that if prices really are negative or there's too much, you're switched off and you're not compensated.
Yeah.
Now, what does that mean for the renewable business plan? It means that at some point, if there will be too much renewables, I will not produce.
Yeah.
It
you have storage.
Matter how cheap I am. It doesn't matter how cheap I am.
Yeah.
If there is too much, I cannot produce.
Yeah. I mean, an alternative would be to store your energy, right? So how?
Yes, but I mean, if you talk about batteries, we talk about storage of 1 hour to 4 hours.
Yeah. What about big batteries, right? I mean, that Tesla built a big battery in Australia. There's more and more big batteries coming up. What do you?
Yeah, but I mean, it just doesn't. It's not economical now. The cases now are in very extreme situations on islands, in markets where there's so much renewable that you need to shift production by a few hours.
Yeah.
But this is not thought through, and I think never in the energy market itself, it was purely a market-based system. There was always a very strong governmental element. Yeah. And I think we always so far have only talked about the power market, but we never talked about capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to think through a 100% renewable market, you will need to have double, triple, quadruple the actual capacity in renewable than what you have in demand. And that means it needs to be storage in the middle. Mm. But which technology, under which remuneration system, this is all not clear and thought through. Yeah? Yeah. Right now, what we're doing is we're just adding capacity, which is becoming cheaper, which has a priority feed-in. But at a certain point, it will break. It will break because there's just too much volumes in the system and it will be curtailed. And this conflict is in the next 5 to 10 years, it's just becoming more aggravated. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it just, in the end, it's a political decision of write-offs. Do we allow to write off old investments and change the system? And I think this is it's not clear yet how it will play out.
Do you dare to make a forecast on how this is gonna?
Yeah, I mean, in Germany they will solve it with a lot of billions paying out the old coal industry. So yeah. it will just make the whole system. It will eventually transform, but it will be very costly because you have to pay off every single one.
Yeah.
And so I think the verdict is not out. I think each country will be different. Mm. It depends also how quickly. I mean, I don't see actually new conventional investment purely on market terms. That's the other reason. I mean, we see it with the nuclear investments. No one is building coal. I mean, there's no new capacity actually being built on the market terms.
In nuclear or coal or any?
Nuclear or coal, yeah. I mean, there either is some state support behind it. Mm. So this, in the end, I think it's just a purely political decision. Yeah.
Okay. Where are the prices now for storage, electricity from storage?
I would not know. I could tell you about solar and wind, but I couldn't.
Okay. Yeah. So it's gonna stay solar and wind. That you're sure about that. So there's no other technology.
Offshore, I think offshore will become increasingly important.
Offshore wind, yeah. There's more and more offshore PV in the news. Have you looked into that?
I saw, but all those PV plants on lakes. That's something I see. Yeah, if you mean that by offshore.
Yeah. Even Singapore thinks of. There will be real offshore, right? Because it's the ocean, but of course, lakes are.
Yeah. I read a bit in the news. You don't see it on big scale yet, but everything has to start. What I find really interesting in offshore is that I somehow see that the dinosaurs, that they are somehow moving into offshore.
Yeah.
So you see RWE and all those old players.
Yeah.
That's something they like. They can invest billions and it's big construction. So I see somehow they're shifting from conventional to offshore. So maybe that's a way for them out.
Yeah.
And
it's a centralized power plant again, right? It's like that big thing.
It's huge.
With a single cable and full control. And
it's huge. When you look at offshore installation, this is, a wind park, you can do 3 turbines. Mm. It's a 10 million investment. Whatever you do in offshore is billions. Mm-hmm. But it's promising because it can generate it has very high full load hours. I mean, they run 4,000 or 5,000 hours, even more, and they can produce enormous amounts of electricity.
Yeah.
So it will have an important role.
Yeah. Excellent. So we touched a little bit on the future. What about the cost side of wind and solar? Where does it have to go? Does it have to even go further down? I mean, I know some engineers say, man, we've reached so much, the costs are so low. Why do we even keep fighting for more efficiencies, high efficiencies, cost down, etc., etc.? Is that a still limiting factor, or is it in the end just competition between the players in the solar and wind market just to beat the guy next door?
Yeah, I think it's greed. People want to earn money and maximize profits. I mean, the biggest, we look at the EEG, someone fixed the income. So how could you earn money? By reducing technology costs.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much capital around, so much money that wants to be invested.
Yeah.
And I think in solar, it's purely electronics. It's the more you build, the cheaper it gets.
Yeah.
So, and it has been predictable. Wind is a bit more complicated because there's much more concrete, steel, technology. I mean, basically this goes all through size. They have to get bigger, that it becomes cheaper. So I think there's a natural advantage for solar.
Okay.
And the big question mark is battery. But when you see how costs have come down, they have the same
learning curve. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I think the key thing is not so the little battery to shift like for 2-3 hours a park, but really the seasonal storage. Yeah?
Okay.
If you think through how to, so look, in Germany we have 40,000 megawatts of wind, and the average size is still 2 megawatts, 2.2 or 3
per wind turbine.
Per wind turbine, and the new turbines which are being built are 4 megawatts easily. So it would be very easy just to have double the capacity, just prospectively.
Yeah.
And in the north of Germany, already 10-15% of all the times they are producing, they need to be curtailed because they have too much electricity.
Yeah.
So
the grid is limiting.
So what do you do with this huge amounts of electricity, renewables? So how can you transform it? How can you store it? What can you do with these free electrons? Yeah.
I promise you, it's almost
already an hour over.
Yeah, it's super fast. So as your final remark, maybe we look at the global scale. What does it take? What does it need to get solar and wind to the next level? Right. I mean, we have come a long way. You were part of this, but how do we make sure? How can we get to 100% renewables in the world, right, on a global scale? What's your?
It's still dirty politics.
Dirty politics.
Yeah, it's not
get the laws right, regulatory.
Yeah, it's not just economics. It's in the end. It's politics as well.
Yeah. So open up the market, liberal markets, open the way for PPAs.
Well, and have basically, I mean, what investors want is clear rules. Like, how does the market? What are the rules?
Yeah. So security on your investment. I know. I don't want to have the laws changing every 4 years, right?
Yeah. I mean, if people know that prices will become extremely volatile, for example, because there's so much renewables, at some point this will create value for someone else.
Yeah.
If you say these are the rules and this is how they will be.
Okay.
So I think, but I think much to come. So I'm very optimistic that this will happen.
Yeah. Hey, Luca, thanks a lot. That was super interesting. Maybe you feel, maybe we can have a chat anytime soon. That was pretty interesting. We just touched the surface on many topics. Thanks a lot for taking the time. All the best with PXA Park.
Thank you.
Yeah, and have a good afternoon.
You too. Thanks, Thorsten.
Bye, Luca.
Bye.
Bye-bye.